Did they finally finish or did you abandon them? No, they That's great, because I have to do that after this.
We're going to take care of that. Peter and I are going to go shopping.
Doesn't that start at 6 o'clock?
The next one. Yeah, we just finished one.
Really? It went that long?
Yeah. But there's set up over there.
Mike will plan or something.
They'll just start at 6. Brian's got it ready Tuesday here, so we'll switch it over. I mean, ideally, of course, I'd like to see.
What time get ready? Everybody ready? Let's begin with a work session for the Common Council, December 20th, 2017. This work session is designed to allow a little bit of extended discussion on any items in the agenda that the councilors would like to indulge the department heads or anybody with. So please start in.
I think it's fixed now, sorry. Okay. You didn't hear us? Yes. Okay, sorry. We're usually not listening out.
Just let the public know this work session goes for 30 minutes. The meeting begins at 5:30. Sometimes we'll take an executive session at this time. There's no need for an executive session tonight, so this is only for free discussion.
I have some questions about 7C. That $17,940 in addition to the capital project, the money that was set aside for that fence repair was $76,941, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry, 59,000 originally, and then it, the 17,940 was added. What caused that? Does anyone know?
Actually, the people that, made those repairs, authorized those repairs aren't here, but it's my understanding that the repairs at Blumet Park, the addition of fencing there, cost more than the original estimates. And that's a cost overrun for fencing.
So that's a cost overrun of nearly 25%.
It's one of the old 2012 recreation facilities capital projects.
Yes.
We talked about them several times, I think at the end of 14 and 15 as to close them out. It just never seemed to get closed, and then additional things, were looked at within those projects because they were general in description of, fencing repairs and upgrades and so forth.
When was that work actually done, Richard? Do you know?
I believe that was paid for at the end of 16. Or if the work was done in 16, it might have been paid for at the beginning of 17.
So the additional 17,000 has already been paid.
Yes.
Okay.
The work was already done, and we've already committed to the contract to pay it.
Richard, could you, while we're on the rec department, could you maybe please explain to me about, I think it's E, about the transfer for the rec fund, general fund?
Currently, the rec complex fund has a roughly $140,000 cash deficit. I'm projecting it to be the 145.
I'm sorry, it has 145,000 what?
Cash deficit. I'm projecting it to be the 145, 426. And it corresponds to their unassigned fund balance that's negative as well. And it should reconcile with differences between, accruals and so forth to about the same amount of money. It's an accumulated unassigned negative fund balance and negative cash deficit that's happened over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's got to be rectified. We have to pay it back. That rec complex fund is supposed to be self-sustaining. The general fund has to pay for this to bring that balance.
So, in other words, it's another hit to our general fund.
For 2017, yes. It'll increase the contributions from the general fund from like 424,000 to the rec complex fund up to about 570, 573.
Thank you.
We talked about this a little bit in our 4 o'clock meeting, and this $145,000 was not just 1 year. That was accumulated over several years. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the goal is to pay this off now, get it past us, and go into the new year with a clean slate, so to speak.
Correct.
Not unlike several other things that we've paid for this year, or set aside funds for.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind, can we go back to 7C, because I have a couple more questions. Just, I hate when we have cost overruns, because generally the council's asked to approve spending after it's already been spent many times, and this seems to be the case here too. So I don't know what we can do about this, but we see a lot of these, and I would like for us to try to eliminate those going forward if we can. I mean, 10% more or 15% more, yeah, that's acceptable. A lot of unknowns, but this is a lot of money. So, can we do that?
We're trying to put in a number of different systems to make sure that there's less after the fact approval of spending and more centralized purchasing and better contracting. It's been tough. I think that we're making headway. We're asking a few people to really become experts in this throughout the city and lend their expertise to other departments, and work more directly with Richard. It's amazing how many times this one piece of paper that you all sign is essentially filled out to get to this point, and then there's still more different versions that arise after this. Nowadays, all that stuff can and should be done essentially electronically, but it's just kind of changing some of those old habits, and Richard has been working incredibly hard to try to help us do that. So it certainly isn't a lack of will, but I think we are going to tighten these things up and tighten up our systems and our accountability and our approval process. I know you've been a leader, for instance, in the type of documentation we need to make certain types of approvals and all that kind of stuff. So I'm confident we'll get there.
No, I've talked
Thank
to Richard about possibly just doing POs electronically through his office, so that it automatically you can see where it applies to the existing budget, and whether it's then exceeding the budget, then it comes to us for,
Yeah, that's, in reference to this particular issue, going forward, we're going to have much more success with these things because we're not going to have as many capital projects open that continuously stay open. The new structure we're working with is to plan what we're going to do and get it done, and get it done in the next year unless there's some extenuating circumstances. Part of the issue here is look at the date of this capital project. It's 2012.
Right.
It was left open as if it was an ATM machine. I'll go to it anytime I want to spend money. We just didn't complete the work and didn't complete it quickly, get it over with. As 5 years go by, costs go up.
Sure.
Metal prices changed over those same time frames dramatically. So it's just bad business not to get these things done and get them done timely. Of course, we're not doing that anymore.
Okay.
Keeping a consistent list, a list we can get done, and what we can complete quickly and efficiently. So I think it's going to improve. And closing down the number of outstanding capital projects has been a goal ever since I started working here. I think there was some 80 of them that were open when I first started. And now we're down to roughly 25 of them, but we're still closing those down.
So one control you mentioned was to have a smaller list that we can finish in roughly a year.
Right, and not just create a list for the sake of having a list out there for things you can't possibly get started because you got too long a list to start with.
Seems like a good metric would be then to measure how long it takes for each project. Maybe to set a timeline and see how many of those could be met.
would be difficult too, because there are varying natures to the degree of projects too, but it could give us some foundation which to look at.
Yeah. For 2019, we have a much more manageable capital expenditure budget that we just adopted back in September.
Okay.
You take a look at that, and it's cleaned up dramatically, and it's very practical about what we can get done.
Good. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Shall we recess for 15 minutes and then renew it at 5:30 then? Thank you.
For you 3 years? Oh, okay. That's really good. I was thinking you might do it right after you go. No.
That's why I wanted to. Yeah, I proposed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, like Sarah Matt, even the biggest engaged in November, they didn't want to drag it out for a year. So it's not really me.
We'll hang out tomorrow night.
We still have to hear babies already.
Yeah.
Just sleeps.
I heard it was bad.
Oh, he went little one, like, okay, because Sarah Matt. That would be like, okay, we're not eating for Sarah. James got it all ready, and I come back out the next morning because he gets me there ready just so they all have to do his frosting. So I said, "Dad, come on, half the roof." He goes, "No." I'm like, "Not anymore." Well, one of our little dogs, she jumped on the table. But she got just that one jump without breaking the whole thing.
They actually lived at the end of starts January 22nd. But it's gonna kill people, kids killed with that find out.
And it gets me used to going.
Yeah, we started to evolve. Or this one, no, it's starting this one. Or no. 5.
We start with this last year.
Okay. Yeah, I figured I'm going to go down. Okay, that's why I was going to be off Monday, Tuesday, and I'll be just trying to see where it's
Friday, just like this.
My whole thing is, he's like, this is what I love, whatever. My whole thing is like, don't even play this.
Oh, yeah. We always get to know he's missing.
If I told you that phone is your mom, but nah, she's like, don't change the thing.
Kids have us, they have Sarah's mother, and they have Matt's parents, so they have their own grandparents. So yeah. Well, we didn't get toys this year. Of course, I'm not. Get them all.
I'll get some.
What's that?
No, it sets it down. The salad bar is professional. Instead of bread, it is.
Climb through the media over there. Stay out of this shop over here.
I heard a song for a few minutes.
You're definitely. Oh, I didn't remember
Sending me emails.
This is any good.
That's something that I have a neighbor that I would he's over here. We try to be friends.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone will be listening. Sorry. Oh yeah.
I know, we really don't know.
Well, you're saying that. Yeah, that's
You've taken off the rest of the.
Everybody loves you.
But in any other instance, then you had the holding columns.
Merry Christmas. Just sitting here by myself. I was still.
Yeah, it was another problem too.
It helps us.
Don't trust people that say no to chocolate.
Good, how are you? That and coffee. What's that? Nobody's gonna give me any chocolate. Okay, I'll drop it off. I'll put it in your mailbox. I said you have a lot of friends over there. Yeah, but you guys come over there. You and Joe are yeah.
Jump on the band.
I was actually shaking when I came in here. I was being outside. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, I read that. It really explains everything to the T.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Because I just like coming back.
Is it a
Yeah.
so like
On the wall, yeah. There is, there's like 4 inches, right where you step out of the so I do have yeah. That's, yeah, and I should have thought of that when I was installing it.
it's also something that
Well, I think I'll just put one on the sheet.
20 seconds. Everybody ready? Call the meeting to order. I'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed.
Present.
Counselor Armstrong. Counselor Kelly.
Here.
Counselor Dowell. Counselor Ensel.
Here.
Counselor Casper. Here. Counselor Kretzer.
Here.
First of all, I apologize for my voice. I don't know how much longer I'm going to last, but I'll do my best. You know, lots happened in the last few days, and there's a really interesting speak out in the newspaper today, and I'm going to take it to heart. It said that if I have something to say, and I want to say it to Councillor Kelly, I think this is something that the whole city ought to hear and fully understand in context what I was talking about. So I'm going to spend my first few minutes today talking about that. First, obviously, I have to begin with an apology. Some of the workers who listened to that thought that somehow I didn't respect their value and contribution to the city, and nothing could be farther from the truth. As a matter of fact, further in that conversation, I said we really have to create better ladders for our entry-level workers to be able to move up and get promoted within the system. And we need to work on creating those opportunities for them to advance and hire more from within. We need to also try to do as much stuff within the city as we can, and the department head for the DPW has been incredibly imaginative this week in trying to figure out a way to create a position that's going to create a lot of savings and more employment for the city as well, rather than contracting out some services. So I'm grateful for that too. And I think often at the beginning of these meetings I show my appreciation for some of the amazing things that our employees are doing, from one of your detectives basically breaking open a national level a case just because he was interested and cared, even though it didn't have necessarily a strong Plattsburgh connection, to your guys who did an amazing job with repainting the room upstairs and now downstairs, when we thought, geez, we were bouncing off some ideas. I wonder if we could just do it in-house and keep our guys a little bit busy right now, rather than hiring out and costing upwards of $9,000, and I can't believe the quality of the work they did. So there's all kinds of examples like that. But I also expressed frustration that the city has not been included in discussions regarding our once biggest property revenue source. You all know that I'm discussing the Falcon Seaboard plant. It was at one time worth more in property value, property taxes to the city of Plattsburgh than our next half a dozen industrial properties combined. It at one time provided $850,000 of revenue to the city, and you all know the plunge in the city's finances when that went off the books in 2009. You know, shame on them to not have included us in the negotiations that have happened, because we were the 40% stakeholder at the time. Shame on us for not adjusting to it a little bit more quickly, but we all know the collective pain we've been trying to endure this last year to finally come out and match expenses with revenue. Our 40% share in that arrangement plunged to 4% share in 2009, and we just discovered last week it's going to plunge to 0.3% share in 2018 on. So, you know, I wasn't involved when that negotiation occurred originally between the town and the city in 1992, where the pilot agreement was forged, and nor was Supervisor Cashman. I think Supervisor Cashman was still in grade school at the time, and I was, I think, in Alaska at the time. And neither of us were involved either, although we were both at the college at the time when it was renegotiated back in 2009. But because of that renegotiation in 2009, the taxpayers for the city of Plattsburgh essentially lost $14 million of value. And we all know the consequences of that. This year we're going to discover that we're skirting a negative fund balance, something that we've been trying to cope with all year. You've understood the pain of it, but $14 million, just imagine what kind of a difference that could have made. Now, it's not Supervisor Cashman's fault, it's not my fault. I don't really care whose fault it is, but I think the taxpayers of the city of Plattsburgh elected me to doggedly pursue these sorts of things and just make sure that the right thing occurs. And I don't think it's something that this is something that town against the city. I think the town needs a very healthy city, and the city needs a very healthy town, and we have to figure out a way to fix that and make it work. In that conversation with Supervisor Cashman, I I explained the stakes if we don't properly figure this out together and make it work. And by the way, I've got a number of ideas, and I think he does too, how we can make this right, and in ways that will benefit the city, the town, and the county as well. So I'm confident we can actually get there somehow, and I'm going to keep working on it. But I did want to stress that if we can't make the city viable, and you've heard me say this many, many times before, and I've written about it for years and years, much more intensively over the last year, obviously, if we can't create a viable city, then our whole area is in jeopardy. We have to reach some sort of consensus, and I'm going to do whatever I can to do so. Now, sometimes that means brainstorming with as many people as possible. I'm not going to apologize for having a conversation with one of my counselors, because I have that same conversation with different counselors throughout the week, probably a dozen different times. Government could simply not operate if we're not afforded the opportunity to sit down and discuss things and look for different ideas, look for ideas that appear so wacky that somebody doesn't even want to talk about in a public session, but there might be merit. We have to be able to explore these things. And this is as much in the town's and the city's interest. Both of us, we need each other to survive. Neither of us can see Plattsburgh, the city of Plattsburgh, withering on the vine. If we're going to eventually dissolve someday because we can't get our act together, I think the whole area is poorer for it. So rather than dissolve, I'd rather have those conversations today to prevent it from occurring. If it's the case that the best thing we could possibly do is continue to wither, and I don't think that's the case, then we'll have those hard discussions as well. I venture, and you've heard me write this and say this many, many times before, this shouldn't be news to anybody, that in 100 years, the city and the town of Plattsburgh are going to be merged. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And now it's not going to happen. It probably isn't going to happen in my lifetime even, but it is going to happen someday, and I'm not afraid to have hard discussions and hard conversations. I think that's why I was elected, and I'm going to continue to do it. And some people might find that threatening, and some people might say it violates the charter, etc. I don't think anything does justice more to the city than us being willing to have the very hard conversations we're going to be having over the city's future. And that includes some of the discussions we're going to have over our finances. I've said many times before at this table, and in private and in public, that next year is going to be a very difficult year, maybe as equally difficult as this year, maybe even more difficult in some ways, because this year, as much as we took on some very, very difficult things, those were in comparison some of the low-hanging fruit. I don't want to have to see having layoffs, etc., next year to try to meet the various budget goals that this council has given me. So I'm incredibly concerned. We do have to work together on all this. We do have to look at what other municipalities in the county and the state do with regard to their compensation plans. We don't have to put it on the backs of the workers today, and if you listen carefully in the conversation I had with Mr. Kelly, I said we need to figure out ways to incentivize the people who are in the system now to protect them as we move to another system so they're not put at some sort of disadvantage. But let's redesign a system that we know can allow the city of Plattsburgh to survive in 20 or 30 years' time, so another mayor at that time isn't put in a really awkward and difficult and unsustainable position. So we're not going to do it by hurting our present employees, but we do want you to be open to discussions that might seem varied, might even seem somewhat threatening, but they're all designed to create a better, more sustainable future, perhaps 20 or 30 years down the road. Even it might be incredibly expensive to put these things in place now. None of you know me as a kick the can down the road kind of guy. If there's things we have to deal with, for instance, like some of the things in the agenda tonight, let's just deal with them, put them on the table, move past them, and hope we can do things better in the future. So all this talk about scandalous discussions between councilors, I'm afraid I'm not going to apologize for that. I have every right to speak with a councilor and deal with very, very difficult issues. And if any of you want to have that same sort of conversation with me, and many of you actually have, I'm willing to have it with anybody at any time, because I think we actually get more ideas, more diversity, greater, more clever solutions by coming together and looking at problems in a different way. I do that regularly. We have large meetings in my room on a daily basis. I can look at most of the department heads right here and figure out, just to give you one example of something really, really clever that I couldn't have ever thought of, that these guys thought of, these men and women thought of, that allowed us to do something better and is going to save the taxpayers much more money and provide much better, more efficient services and allow us to sustain the jobs in the city that we've come to expect. So I can't make apologies for that, even though I realize there's a lot of people that would like me to be apologetic for it. If you want me to really be apologetic and back down on the things that we need to do as a city, I think you really need to elect a different mayor. And I think you should expect different results, and I think the results that this council and I'm plan to deliver in the next few years. So please work with me on it. All of our jobs are online. The entire city's survival at some point is online. You see the data. We know the data incredibly well. I don't find it scary. I believe there's opportunities here, but there's not going to be opportunities if we simply use this as an opportunity to fight amongst ourselves. So I think I've probably said enough because my voice is about completely. Glad that didn't come out because it wasn't a very nice word. So let's begin the meeting. I just have one or two other announcements. We did receive a very nice correspondence on the part of the firefighters. A couple of your firefighters, Andrew and Daryl, came to the aid of a young fellow named Nicholas, and his mother is very, very grateful for that. And I really also want you all to enjoy the presentation on the parking study results after this meeting. You'll see the room that we're presenting in, former council chambers, looks an awful lot better now. Thanks again to the DPW workers that took it upon themselves to paint it. So please join that meeting after this and see some good news about the future of parking and the potential for the DRI in our community. Thank you.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on December 14th, 2017 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Casper, second by Councillor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the City of Plattsburgh for the week ending December 20th, 2017 in the amount of $488,848.30 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kretzer, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the reports as listed are hereby ordered, received, and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Ensel and second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. I think there was a recommendation from the board. Have you gone to your first meeting at Dr. King up at the county for the health?
No meetings yet.
Oh, okay. So I hope you enjoy that. I'm sorry.
Resolved that the bills audited by the Common Council for the week ending December 22nd, 2017 in the amount of $1,177,643.51 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly and seconded by Councillor Ensel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity for any individuals to please come and address the council on any issues that are on the agenda. There will be another opportunity for public comment shortly at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, let's continue, please.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to establish a debt service reserve for the Water Fund Infrastructure Investment Charge Revenue, IIC, designated to service the serial bond debt for the city's water tanks. The remaining amount of the IICs to be transferred to the reserve is currently $312,795 and is authorized for transfer once the reserve account is established.
Moved by Councillor Casper, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion, please. Roll call.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Ensel?
Yes.
Councillor Casper? Yes. Councillor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to transfer $535,140 to the Water Capital Reserve from the Water Fund Operating Fund, representing the remaining IICs being charged for the Meade and Westbrook dams, which have been designated to pay for capital improvements initially and eventually serial bond debt service once and if the dams are upgraded using debt finding.
Moved by Councillor Kelly and second by Councillor Ensel. Discussion, please. Roll call.
That should say
What?
debt funding, I'm sorry. It says debt funding. That's a
Debt funding.
I told you debt funding, yeah.
Can you read it again?
You ready?
Roll call? Yeah.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to revise Capital Project H 7020.17 Recreation Facility Upgrades for the amount of $17,940.40 for the additional cost for the Blumet Park fencing upgrade.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Kretzer, please. Discussion?
Once again, that is for cost overruns that have been accumulated over the past 5 years of work.
I think the work was done in 2016 to finalize that fencing upgrade. I can get you the dates on that.
But it's not it wasn't a 1 year overrun, it was over a couple of years, if I remember correctly, if I
Well, it's hard to
understood
say
you correctly.
because that element of the capital project was $59,000, and it was for fencing and parks and different upgrades. It wasn't even specific as to which location.
Okay.
So it's hard to tell, but we know that the fencing, the finalization of the fencing at Blumet Park was what would cost the whole
Over, okay.
element to go overrun by $17,940.
Second. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
During the work session, we discussed this, and we were reassured that controls are in place to minimize this type of overrun in the future. Thank you very much for the explanation, Mr. Marks.
Mr. Ruff and his infrastructure group are the ones that have straightened this out, you know, given us a shorter list of capital projects and more manageable list of work that's going forward.
Yes, those are all good things, so makes me comfortable that we should take care of this now.
Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to adjust the 2017 general fund budget by $17,940.40 for the cost of fencing at Blumet Park in excess of the 2012 capital project H 7020.17 recreation facilities upgrades that extended the original project estimates. Exceeded the original.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Casper. Discussion, please. Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to adjust the 2017 General Fund and Rec Complex Fund budgets to eliminate the negative ending 2016 unassigned fund balance consistent with the 2017 ending projected cash deficit of $145,426 within the Rec Complex Fund.
Moved by Councilor Ansel, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion, please.
I'm sorry, Richard, I misspoke. This was the debt that was accumulated over a couple of years from the rec center.
It's the deficit that's accumulated over several years on the rec complex fund, yes. It's a cash deficit with a corresponding unassigned fund balance deficit.
And was about 5 years or so, you said that it's accumulated over?
I have to look back, but I believe it's closer to 3 or 4 years.
Thank you.
And the goal is to go ahead and pay it this year to clear the books for next year.
And keep a balanced fund for the rec complex fund going forward. It's supposed to be self-sustaining, rec complex fund.
You think it will be next year?
It's budgeted to be.
Okay. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Is Paul here?
Any further questions? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to adjust the 2017 sewer fund budget for the necessary capital reserve transfers to be made to the capital fund for Public Works Projects 2017 capital spending.
Moved by Councilor Ansel, second by Councilor Kretzer. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves PMLD bid number 2017-11-2, 3,000 kVA and 2,000 kVA pad mount transformer be awarded to Irby Utilities in the amount of $133,047.19.
Moved by Councilor Kretzer, second by Councilor Casper. Discussion, please. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the City Chamberlain to establish a 2017 year-end accrued liability of $738,515 for the May of 2017 Fire Arbitration Award charged to the Judgments and Claims Appropriation accounts budgeted for in the adjustment ratified by the Common Council on June 29, 2017, as payment of the award is not likely to occur within 2017, and a liability recognizing the obligation to pay the award or some portion of the award is appropriate based on generally accepted accounting principles.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Casper. Discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Enzel?
Yes.
Counselor Casper?
Yes.
Counselor Kretzer?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions you'd like to bring up for initial consideration? Seeing none, new business or councilor reports, please. Are there any closing comments or comments from the public? And at this time, please come up and address the council on any issue of mutual concern.
So I'm Doug Buttdorf. Hello, everybody. I live in the city. I don't know if I have to tell everybody my address and stuff, but I simply wanted to say that I wish that the state recently mandated the continuation on a permanent basis of the shared services work, and I'd like to make sure that the city keeps that high on a priority list, because I believe that that can work to our advantage in 2018 as we address the funding gaps of 2019. And I would appreciate if that stayed a focus. And also, I want to ask the mayor to please work on any potential gaps in your relationship with the town of Plattsburgh. I don't know what that will take, but certainly some mediation, maybe not paid, but just sit down with someone and maybe have a third party at the table and figure out how to get some work done. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Doug.
Thank you. On the second account, that's already well underway. On the first account, the governor's office did ask me for a comment to endorse his new package of having a shared services committee on a regular permanent basis, and I absolutely and wholeheartedly endorsed it. And I believe that just off the top of my head, I can come up with 4 or 5 really, really major shared services things we can do together that can fundamentally change the way the city, the town, the county, and other municipalities interact in the future. So I'm absolutely 100% behind it, as I believe the county is too. Chairperson McManus also did an endorsement for the governor's proposal as well. So I think that these could be very exciting times, and we obviously, in the past, there's been some sense of competition between the city and the town. I really think this is the time to change that and to really start doing things much more cooperatively and in a more of a consolidated basis going forward. So please be listening for a number of very good things that I think can flow out of all this. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from individuals like to please come and address the council? Seeing none, I do please encourage you to stay for the discussion in the next room afterwards. It'll begin in about 5 minutes on various far-reaching proposals for parking in downtown Plattsburgh. These are pretty important discussions. This is the last opportunity for the consultant from Michigan to actually hear from us feedback on some of his proposals. He'll then take away from this our final comments and produce a report for us that I hope we would see sometime in early to mid-January, and that will then allow us to start developing a plan to presumably move parking out of Durkee Street into other locations in the city and start developing this Durkee Street area very fully in 2018. So this is the first step in a very, very important process. I hope you can remain. And motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Renzel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. I just barely made it.
Merry Christmas all.
I'll do a roll call. We should do a roll call as adjournment.
Roll call?
For adjournment, yeah.
Roll call for adjournment?
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Renzel?
Yes.
Counselor Cassidy? Counselor Spencer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good open team.
I didn't catch the last part of that.
They don't consider sickness in the adjournment on Robert's rules.
Lots of lists. All right, see you, man.
See you. Thanks.